All right, welcome into Heating Up, Auburn, Alabama basketball video show podcast. We're not sure where we're all going to put this up. Alex Maston here, two of my buddies, Drew Norris, Cody Manderson. We've been talking Auburn, Alabama basketball for years now, and group messages and in person and all kind of stuff. And we thought, but what better time to start something like this? And maybe other people would want to kind of join the community and talk Auburn and Alabama hoops. You know, both teams are ranked in the top 25. Both teams have big blowout wins in their openers. Both teams in the Kim Palm top 25. Big crowds at both games. I thought the atmosphere has grown tremendously since a few years ago or when we were in college even. So just want to jump on here and we're just going to kind of see what happens. And this is going to be our first ever episode. And we're going straight into talking about the season openers. So this is Wednesday. We're recording this November 10th. Both teams opened up at home, kind of against overmatched opponents on November 9th. So guys, let's just jump straight into it. Auburn was a little bit earlier, I think a 7 o'clock tip. So let's jump into the Auburn game. Cody, we had Auburn with a 77-54 win over Morehead State. I figure most people that are watching this show, they watch the game. You know, they know about it. So we don't have to give the play-by-play of the game, but just kind of initial, reactions to the game. What'd you think of it?
So I really liked our intensity on defense. That's the first and foremost what I took from that game. We really brought it on the defensive side, and the younger guys that we had brought in it looked like they're bought into the team defense concept. Another thing, kind of big picture stuff. Walker Kessler is a little bit, or he's better at defense as advertised. I know me going into the season, I heard stretch 5, kind of assume some soft. Maybe he's probably a little softer on the defensive side. No, he's as advertised on protecting the rim. Really like to see that. And also Wendell Green Jr., he came in lights out. Looks like he might be filling right in from, what Auburn's been used to for the last couple of years with having a point guard or a ball dominant guard that can just stretch the floor with a shot making ability.
Yeah, I think the first thing that jumped out to me was atmosphere in the building, to be honest. Last year it just wasn't the same. I went to a couple games and I mean, I hate to say this, honestly, it's kind of a waste of money going to those two games. It was weird. It wasn't just the mask. It was just how they had everybody spread out and nobody on the floor. And it was just different. That wasn't college basketball. And I think NBA could get away with that. But I think the atmosphere is too important to college basketball. So Tuesday night, Auburn has a small arena, 9,121 seats. I think it's perfect size for Auburn. Sold out. Pretty much every game this year is going to be a sellout. So that was kind of the thing that jumped out to me. And that Bruce Pearl and the staff were wearing polos. I didn't know what they were going to do. Were y'all a little surprised by the dress choice?
Trend.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess everybody's just going to – is that just what we're going to do? We'll talk about Alabama in a minute. I think Oates had a coat on, though.
Bruce Pearl, the ultimate zagger.
Well, he's sweating through the suits anyway. I'm all for just being comfortable, I guess.
I always enjoyed it the most when I was coaching. Just, a polo and some slacks. They're the most comfortable.
Yeah, I think early on I was like, I wanted it to be a profession. So I wanted to dress up and, make it an appearance thing, and just make it seem like you took it seriously, I guess, is the point of that. But I don't know. We're 2021. Things have changed.
If you're doing your job correctly, you're burning calories over there just like your players are. So
yeah, I'm with you. That was another thing we're going to do a lot of comparing and contrasting these two programs. The whole point of the show is because the rise of both the Alabama and the Auburn program, we won't talk about it, but that's one thing. Both coaches are up and they are into the game big time. Emotionally, the crowd, the players, both coaches have a lot of similarities there. Just looking a little bit more big picture into this game. The betting line ended up being Auburn by 14.5, so an easy cover there. And the over-under was 145 and an easy under there. So a little bit surprising to me. I guess I would have – I don't know. I guess I didn't want to touch this game, period. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. Auburn had kind of a close exhibition game, and I think that probably helped kind of get the Auburn team ready to play a little bit. So I wouldn't have touched either of those lines and not really, I guess, shocked either way. Drew, just watching the Auburn game, what were some big picture thoughts, just kind of reactions to the game?
Can you hear me? Yeah, for me, it was
kind of Bruce's MO, very heavily defensive, very active. He's a really good motivator. So seeing them come out and play like that, and how hard and turning that Moorhead team over. You can kind of tell there was always a step ahead as far as athleticism, as far as speed of the game and all that than that Moorhead squad was. But one thing that stuck out to me was the productivity of your newcomers. It seemed like every time a basket was being scored or a shot was being blocked, it was either one of the transfers y'all just had, or it was the freshman that y'all have in Jabari Smith. So I thought that was really good for y'all to watch and see was the production from all the new guys and after losing Sharif last year and stuff like that.
Cody, let me jump into player discussion a little bit. You mentioned it right off the bat, and I thought the biggest takeaway player-wise would be Wendell Green. The transfer point guard. He was all conference as a freshman in the OVC, which I think is what Moorhead. He's probably played Moorhead, a couple times. Bruce Pearl is all about point guard play. Auburn is at their best when they've got a point guard creator that can shoot the ball, that can get everybody in spots. And again, we're going to contrast. I had a lot of thoughts on how Alabama played, which was very differently with not really having that one guy in charge. I thought Wendell Green was fantastic. I had him down for 19 points, 5 rebounds. He's one of the smallest guys on the court, 3 assists and 0 turnovers. Tell me a little bit more about what you thought of Wendell's game.
Yeah, he was just very active. And I know I didn't know he had that kind of range on him, and it looked like he was shooting it with confidence. And I hope it persists through the season, because that's something that we desperately need. I think that like Zeb Jasper, he comes in and gives us a little more of a defensive edge at the guard spot. And Katie Johnson is a streaky shooter and gives us scoring ability. But if we can have that constant deep threat from Wendell Carter, or Wendell Green Jr., then that's just going to make our offense run like Bruce Pearl offense should be running.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That I guess still the question mark is watching him do it against more of a Power 5 opponent. That'll be the kind of next step. Can we see that happen? But he was shooting the ball like Jared Harper out there. Those are deep transition threes. Bruce letting them go.
17 times. Not afraid to shoot it 17 times during their game. First game in an Auburn jersey.
his first game. I think that tells you a lot that he started him too. Zep Jasper is the other guard who he started as well. He's more of a veteran guy. I think he may get 2 years of eligibility because of the rules last year, but he's pretty much a grad transfer from College of Charleston. So I thought Zep did a pretty good job defensively. He was in foul trouble a lot, and Bruce talked about that after the game. Zep's got to figure out a way to be aggressive like that, but not reach and get calls. So that was something. Zep started at the 2 guard, I guess, and then he was the backup point guard pretty much as well. And then, like Cody said, Katie Johnson came in, sort of firecracker. He shot the ball a lot. I had him 5 of 14, but he was really getting to the lane a lot. He hit a couple threes, 4 rebounds, 2 steals. Drew, any thoughts on either? You didn't get to see a lot of Zep Jasper in this game, but Katie Johnson came off the bench, transferred from Georgia, looked pretty good.
Yeah, I remember us playing him last year, and he was, at Georgia, he was kind of their guy. He got eligible later as the season started, came in, and man, he really lit it up from outside. So you knew he was kind of bringing that to you guys. But he's also plays with a good motor on defense as well, as far as getting into you and trying to stir you up, make you cause turnovers. I think that's the biggest jump I see from this Auburn team from last year is the overall guard play. Yeah. Last year when Sharif was running the show, it looked good, but when he wasn't, there was a big drop off. Where this year you got multiple guards that can create, multiple guards that can shoot from outside. And I think you kind of see the difference in having guards with experience too. And I'll kind of talk more about that when we get over to Alabama. But those transfers in Zep and Wendell, you can tell their experience has kind of helped in that game 1, and we'll see how it translates into SEC and Power 5 ball as well.
Yeah, I thought the quickness level was big time with those guards. That's something Bruce didn't like on his team last year. He didn't feel like he tried to go a little bigger. Didn't feel like he had the quick guards that he really likes to have. He doesn't mind them being a little undersized if they've got some quickness. Cody, did you notice anything else guard play wise that stuck out last night?
No, and like Drew said, we'll hit on a little bit later. Alabama is in a lot similar boat where they got 3 guys that can just really get it done for you at the guard position. But I really like what we've seen. Like you said, we kind of did a complete overhaul. We got, hopefully, it's going off one game, but we got deep threat and Wendell Green Jr., and then we got, more of a calming defensive presence with Zepp, and hopefully a firecracker coming off the bench with KD. And if all that stays true, then I like what we got at the guard rotation this year.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna miss Sharif Cooper, no doubt. I mean, he would have just excelled with that team out there.
Yeah.
But when you go from Tyrell Jones, a guy who transferred, he wasn't getting on the court, to Jamal Johnson, who's just that specialty player, shoot the basketball, try to guard. These guys this year are on a different level all the way around from those guys from last year.
Yeah. And another thing, when we get Alan Flanagan back, maybe we can put David Cambridge in that guard rotation, because he impacted the game in a lot of different ways yesterday.
Yeah.
I was really impressed to see his evolution of the game. He really looked like a upperclassman that's been there, done that, getting key rebounds, impacting the game more than just, setting up and shooting it from 3-point line.
I think the transition, I think the rotation will move to that, with him playing a little bit more backup guard. Yeah, I'm with you.
And I don't know if you're plus or minus guys, but Cambridge was actually y'all's highest plus minus with like a 28.
Every time I watched, or every time it seemed like I was looking up, he's impacting the game in a positive manner. I was really impressed with him.
And he's one of those guys that he needs the other guys really running the show. If he can be the fourth or fifth most talented guy on the court, he's a great fourth or fifth guy. If you're relying on him to create offense, usually things aren't going to very well.
Yeah, we kind of saw that early last season, beginning of the season. They try to make him a key focal point with Sharif, and you can tell he fits that spot up role and go get putbacks and stuff like that better.
He's a play finisher, not a playmaker. I'm always about that, knowing your role a little bit. And you could tell that he really probably worked on his game between freshman and sophomore year. So he was like, I can go out there and do it. And then you get there and it's like, you still just need to play to your strengths. But, the main point of the Auburn game was those guards were able to be so active defensively because of all the guys behind them. So let's touch on the front court, because that's going to be the strength of this team completely. Cody, let me jump to you first. Walker Kessler, Jabari Smith. I thought Jalen Williams was really good off the bench. Let's talk about the front court guys a little bit.
Yeah, so, obviously Kessler stands out. I mean, he was doing a great job of protecting the rim.
That's what a 5-star big man is supposed to look like. We're always trying to go get a 5-star big man. Every program is, and a lot of the times they're raw and they're not that helpful sometimes. Walker Kessler looks like a 5-star big guy.
Yeah, and he was playing against Johnny Broome, who I think got OVC Freshman of the Year last year. So, I mean, he wasn't playing with any scrub yesterday. So I think that's a good takeaway. That was definitely one of the strengths of their of Morehead State's team was the guy that he was guarding most of the time. But I really like our rotation again. This is kind of going to be the same for both Auburn and Alabama. You got Jalen Williams coming off the bench, and he's always impressed me as a playmaker. He's makes the smart basketball play. Sometimes he forces things every once in a while, but he's always making a good pass, or and
let me say a stat line real quick for you to bounce off that, because that kind of will say the kind of the game for him. He had 10 points off the bench, 4 of 6 from the field, couple rebounds, couple assists, but also 3 turnovers. I mean, that's kind of the typical line of a Jalen Williams game.
And he looked a lot more confident shooting it to me this time around. And having him, and I'm going to throw KD Johnson out there, those are 2 offensive line and rods. If they can just buy in and they do keep coming off the bench, that's just going to be awesome to have, especially when getting deep in SEC play. Really like, Stretch didn't get much playing PT.
Pretty much the rotation was a pretty simple Walker Kessler at the 5, and Dylan Cardwell would spell him for a few minutes. Jabari Smith at the 4, and Jalen Williams would come in at the 4. And he was playing a little bit more, and then Jabari got a little banged up with a cramp, so Jalen played a little bit more. But it seems like all things being equal all season, if they could go with those 2 guys at both those positions, that's what they'll want to do.
And I think that's their best move. I mean, I think they gives both units, what they need as far as defense or offensive ability.
Walker Kessler had 5 blocks in the game. I mean, and not that many minutes, played pretty deep, played some walk-ons at the end and stuff. 5 blocks were just really impressive. He moves his feet pretty well on defense. I'm always looking at that for a big guy. I guess the negative on his night was he's 0 for 4 from the 3-point line. Bruce said he was going to let him do it. That's one of the reasons he left North Carolina and came here. The shots didn't look bad, and he wasn't forcing them. What'd y'all think of Walker Kessler shooting the ball?
You got to let your big man get him up, man. You got to keep him active. you let him go 0 for 5 from 3-point, he's going to get an all-star performance on the defensive side. I mean, it's a give or take with the big man at this day and age in basketball. And I liked what I seen. You know, hopefully maybe one day one couple more games than not, he's hot and he actually hits those. And
Drew, if you're an opposing team, you just watched that game from Auburn last night. Even though Kessler doesn't make those shots, if you're scheming your defense, I mean, you have to respect it, right?
To an extent, I would definitely make him make one first before I would start really guarding it. Because, as a big man, and if I was doing my report, I would pull back numbers from his first day in college till now, and they said on TV his last year his free throw percentage was around 53%, and that's really where you tell, his form doesn't look bad, but you really kind of tell what kind of shooter people are by their free throws and how much they have to progress. And I would make him make a few before I would guard it. But if he starts knocking them down, then of course you got to start getting up into him. But yeah, I would definitely make him make a few before I would guard it.
I think first play of the game, he put the ball on the floor and slashed in the lane, made a little Euro, kind of stepped through and laid it in. So I'm looking for big things for Walker Kessler, and I think he's happy to be there. Every interview he just talks about, he doesn't say he should have come originally last year, but you can kind of tell in his voice that he kind of messed that up, kind of fell in love with North Carolina and thought that he was going to be the next superstar there. But I think Walker Kessler fits at Auburn, and I think that makes Auburn a little different than everybody else. There's just not a Walker Kessler on every single team in the SEC.
Oh, yeah. I mean, big, almost 7-foot body, if not. Really good rim protection. Like y'all said, he played really good defense. I thought his offense needed work. He's still kind of getting a feel for the offensive side of the ball, I felt like, from my perspective. But defensively, he adds a lot to y'all. And when you got guards playing really well, and then you got Jabari Smith, who, looked really good against Morehead State. Hopefully, we'll see. I want to see him more against SEC. Power 5 top players, but I think he'll still be really good. But yeah, I'm you don't necessarily rely as much on Kessler's offense when you have those around him, but it's good if it does develop.
Hey, one thing I want to hit on with Kessler before we jump off of him is one thing I appreciated Bruce not doing is a couple years ago when Auburn signed Austin Wiley, he was a back to the basket guy, but we were making such a point of getting him the basketball down there. And I mean, the conversion rate of somebody making him a good pass, him catching it, and then laying it in, it was pretty low. And I just thought those are low percentage plays. They didn't do that last night with Walker Kessler. He was just kind of in the offense, and they didn't really do it with Jabari Smith either. I think they probably will later on run some more stuff from him, but Kessler can catch the basketball. Jabari did a good job that high-low, getting him the ball a couple times. I thought Jalen Williams threw him a nice pass or two, so it was just refreshing having a big guy who can catch it, but we weren't scheming our whole offense around getting him the basketball. Did y'all see that too?
Yeah. And that's one thing I was going to say before we jump off the big man, but that's something Kessler and, quite frankly, Dylan Cardwell does really well, going off one game, Kessler and Dylan Cardwell did all last year, but it's being active on putbacks, offensive boards, and like you said, just kind of cleaning up garbage points, not necessarily having to man the ball on the post from a guard entry or anything like that. And that's makes me very optimistic going forward if Kessler can get those kind of points for us.
So let's jump over to Jabari Smith, the highest rated recruit to ever sign with Auburn. I think he was number 4 on most of the recruiting rankings. And a couple guys ahead of him ended up going pro. So it's just like Holmgreen and then him on some of the polls or some of the rankings. He was only 2 for 3 out there. 2 for 3 from the 3-point line. I wanted to make a note of that. Shoots the ball pretty well, but he had 3 assists, 3 steals, and a block. He was just kind of a productive player out there, making a little stuff, kind of stat sheet stuffer type guy. What were y'all's kind of initial impressions from Jabari after hearing all the hype and then seeing him in game 1 and, had a decent game, but didn't really force anything out there?
So I really liked his intensity on defense. You hear about all of his offensive prowess coming into the program and everything, but if he's locked in like that on defense, that's a whole nother level.
He's tall. Jabari Smith's taller than I thought he was.
long.
Like, I'm thinking of like Chuma and some Tobias Harris, some guys I've seen play the 4 for Bruce and excel. This dude's like 3 inches taller than those guys.
he looked longer and taller than JT Thor, like by a couple inches.
Wow.
And that's
Ooh,
crazy.
I
you
don't
know?
know about that. That dude's long and tall.
I
don't know
know,
about that.
but to me, he did out there. I mean, or he was reminiscent of it. He's touching passes and very active on defensive side of the ball, which is awesome. And look, and the couple shots he did make, it look very confident. Going forward, I just hope he keeps progressing. I didn't really ever see him too overmatched physically, which I was kind of looking for during the game. But it was Morehead State. Don't really know how much they have to show off on that end. But also, I really liked him paired with Kessler. Kessler kind of picked up some of the interior muscle slack. Slack that maybe we might be lacking with Jabari out there, but. There was an inbounds play that he called right there on the baseline. He knocked it down with confidence. I mean, it's kind of like Kevin Durant. He gets up, elevates, shoots it. Nobody's gonna be able to, contest it. So if he's able to knock those kind of shots down, then that's awesome.
Yeah, skill level for me. Drew, anything else on Jabari? Getting to see him kind of for the first time, other than just like high school and all-star games and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched on it. It was kind of cool to see a highly touted player come in and not force it. A lot of five-star kids that are done it their whole life want to come in and get theirs, whereas he just kind of played through the offense and let it come to him. So that was kind of cool to see. I'm like I mentioned just a minute ago, I'm ready to see him play against the SEC Power 5 top players, where Auburn will probably have to play through him a little more, but he's also going to be guarded by bigger, stronger dudes that he probably hasn't seen that often. So I think he's going to be a really good player. I just can't wait to watch him play against people more up to his level.
So all in all, I feel like a pretty successful opener for Auburn. I was going to hit on a few more team stats before we move on. They shot 46% from the field, 9 threes. They were 9 of 31 for 29%. They held Morehead State to 5 threes, only 5 of 18 from the 3-point line. Got out rebounded by 4. Morehead State with 4 more rebounds. That was something Bruce talked about, being a little upset about, mostly in the second half. 12 steals, 8 blocks. That kind of tells what y'all are talking about, being so active early in the game, where they just looked like they're on a different level athletically than Morehead State. Best stat for me in an opener, only 6 turnovers. I thought with a brand new team, they've never played together, opening night against a decent opponent, 6 turnovers. That's pretty solid.
Yeah, that was one of the stats I really liked from y'all's stat line. The ones that kind of stood out to me was y'all's, like we mentioned earlier, Auburn, Bruce Pearl, you're going to be fired up, playing defense and all that. So the stats that kind of came out to me was the points off turnovers and the fast break points. I think y'all got around 35 altogether with those, which, when you get a lot of those easy buckets, it makes your offense flow a lot easier because you don't rely as much on your sets and stuff like that. Then the other point I wanted to point out was your bench points. Getting 32 from your bench goes a long way, because then your starters, don't have to supply that line, and kind of just makes everything flow a lot better and puts a lot more pressure on that defense.
Yeah, pretty much a 9-man rotation. I think that's what we're going to see until Allen Flanagan gets back, and we'll see if they play 10 or if somebody falls off a little bit. Cody, any other team stuff that jumped out to you before we move on?
No, well, so I was really interested to see how our guards play. I think that was the big question mark going into this season. We kind of knew what we had with offensive potential in Kessler and Jabari, but in Allen Flanagan and Cambridge being the 3 and 4 guy. But as far as the new guys coming in, I was so impressive. Like you said, what was it, 6 turnovers? And they're showing offensive capability that we weren't really expecting, long range shooting and stuff like that. So just impressive. Hope we keep it rolling. And like you said, the depth. We're going to need that, especially in the atmosphere that we are in currently with COVID and everything.
Yeah, you never know, for sure. So next up for Auburn, Friday night, ULM comes. ULM was supposed to be decent, and then LSU absolutely destroyed them game 1.
Good
that line wasn't that
gosh.
high. I was shocked by that.
That was unreal.
So I don't, you hate to play a team that just got beat like that, because you feel like they're going to be a little frustrating. They've been working on everything, but you also say, I don't even know if they could compete, even if they play their best. That's
Yeah.
rough. And I think it'll be a big crowd. Auburn's got a home football game Saturday morning against Mississippi State. I always like that Friday night home game. Should be a really, really good crowd. So that'll be Friday night for Auburn. And then they'll be getting into tournament play not soon after that, though, with the Bahamas, and we can talk about that a little bit. So let's move over to the Alabama game. It was a little bit of a late start. I think it was an hour later. Was that 8:00 tip, Drew?
Yeah, it was.
And so Alabama won 93-64. I think that was their biggest lead of the game. Both teams, 29 was the biggest lead of the game. So Alabama kind of hit it at the end a little bit. Went over La Tech. The line was 11.5 in this one. So they were expecting a little better game than the Auburn-Morehead State game. And, they pretty much didn't get it. I mean, Alabama took control pretty early. The over-under was 154, I think. And Alabama hit like at the very end. I think a couple walk-on buckets were the difference.
Yeah.
And that's why you just can't bet over-under in
No.
college basketball, especially early in the season.
Yeah.
Big crowd at Coleman Coliseum, 15,000. I think that's 82%. So that's a big old place. I don't know if Alabama needs that many seats. I don't care how good they are. But
They had new ones in the
good
making.
crowd. Oh, there you go. So Drew, let's jump to you first. Just kind of first reactions. Turn on the game, and what do you see?
So initial reaction, and it's kind of what we expected to see this season. We knew our front court would be a little iffy, a little slim right now, especially when we got a few guys out. But our guard play, they just took over from the start. When you return your top two scorers from last year, it goes a long way. But we also lost 4 out of the top 6. So there was a lot to replace. But guys like Keon Ellis, who Nate Oates thinks is the best two-way player in the conference and arguably, across the nation, he's really stepped into his role this year and becoming a leader and one of the guys that we turn to. So it was fun to see him have a breakout game, and really just with so many guards, it was fun to watch that speed that Nate Oates talks a lot in the action. They were fast. La Tech hung around a little bit earlier, but their big guy, which I don't know if you got to see.
He's good. I
Yeah,
think La Tech was pretty good, first of all. I think they were pretty good, and I think that guy was really good.
Oh, they are. They're picked.
Are y'all talking about Kenneth Lofton?
Yeah.
The big
6'7",
dude.
yeah.
He was no
275.
joke. He's no joke. He had that fat guy energy down there.
Yeah,
Oh,
he just
yeah. He's
moved
like Big
people
Baby
around.
Junior. Yeah. But he was freshman of the year in their conference, and they're picked to finish second right now in the conference, but arguably win it. So they went to the Final Four of the NIT. They've got a really good team, but I think the speed, it kind of hurt Lofton and his. Early in the season, running that much, you're a big dude, and he's who they play through. So when we were able to get him out of the game, it for sure, was an advantage on our side.
Yeah, my kind of just first things real quick was, again, the atmosphere, a big crowd, an excited crowd, even more than just numbers in both these games, just people being happy to be there and excited about their program, excited about the recruiting class, that kind of stuff helps as well.
And a lot of it, I don't know if y'all know, but our student section was ran by a student leader last year that died of COVID. They called him Fluff. He was really big impact on a lot of people, and it was kind of a memorial night for him and all that. So it was kind of cool. And that's why you saw a lot of plaid jackets if you looked around and all that. But yeah, students showed up. They packed it out. I think they sold out a student ticket. So that was kind of cool to see the first game of the season.
On the court, my one big reaction, and I guess it wouldn't have been right here because he didn't start, but I thought J.D. Davison was a step above everybody on the court. I thought he was faster than everybody on the court. He was as confident as anybody on the court. I thought that dude just looked at a different level, and we'll talk a lot about him, I'm sure, but to me, he just looked a little bit different. I mean, I'm saying he's better than Shackford or Quinterly necessarily right this minute, but just watching him play basketball, he looked at a little bit of a different level than everybody else.
Oh yeah, for sure. And he's going to be fun to watch. Coming out of high school, everyone knew he was really athletic, could do crazy dunks and all that. But what a lot of people probably didn't realize was the vision and playmaking ability he has. When you're on a small 2A school in Alabama, you're kind of the guy and you're doing everything.
Well, see, that's why I think he stood out to me even more, was almost just a mindset. Like, he was the alpha out there. They're running 3 guards that can bring the ball up the court. and it was usually him with the basketball. Like he's got a little Colin Sexton in him. He's got a little Russell Westbrook in him, just kind of alpha male out there. Cody, what'd you think of him, and any other reactions, whatever you thought of the game?
Man, so
Other than his hair, I can't stand to watch that hair. I couldn't take my eyes off the hair the whole game.
Yeah. So I swear to God, I'm not an Alabama fan, but that triple-headed dragon with a Shaq Fern Quinterly and JD Davis come off the bench, that's really
That's
awesome.
what jumps out to you.
Well, but we all kind of already hit on that. What jumped out to me was Juwan Gary coming off the bench. I thought he's a defensive dynamo. He's going to be a matchup problem. If that's what his role is going to be, is coming off the bench. I mean, he's going to be a problem.
He picks up the scraps.
Yeah, he's going to be a problem with that second unit. And, I think Auburn can maybe match that, with Jalen Williams and the depth that we have around there. But that's going to be a problem.
There's a lot of different ways to go talking about this Alabama team. To me, they just
I almost feel like going small is their best bet.
I mean, they did almost the whole game. Before we even jump into that, Drew, let me kind of ask you about this. I don't even know how to say his name. Bidiako.
Yeah.
He looked totally out of place to me. I'm not. I know he's young.
I take away too.
They didn't play him that much. He was in foul trouble real quick, but man, he didn't look ready to be out there with that group. What do you think?
Yeah, he's 6'11" freshman from Canada. He was 5-star. He's highly touted, but I think there was a lot of rawness. He's developed pretty quickly over the last couple of years. I don't even think he played every year of high school, so I think he's kind of raw, but really good size, can run the floor well. And you see that a lot of times in bigs. It takes a little bit of time to adjust to the speed and the power that the college level brings to you. So I think you saw a lot of that.
That's why I'm so impressed with Walker Kessler, because he's not that. I'm seeing so many big guys come in and they look like that guy did. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And maybe with a year of growth, he looks more like a Walker Kessler would. Obviously he's not going to be shooting threes like Walker Kessler claims he can do and all that. But as far as rim protection and rebounding, that's kind of what we got him for. And hopefully he can develop into that guard, because we really haven't had one since Dante Hall, a guy that can actually block shots and teams aren't scared to teams are afraid to just go in and shoot layups.
He's got a long way to go to be the next Dante Hall, though. Dante Hall was an athletic guy out there and looked like he was.
Yeah, but I mean, Dante also played 4 years too, though.
That's true. Yeah.
This dude's fresh out of high school, so you got to give him a little time to adjust. But yeah, I mean, you can see the difference though in JD Davison coming out of high school, and then Bidiako coming out of high school. It's a whole different level.
So pretty quickly, Alabama scrapped those plans and they played small the most of the game. Gurley, the transfer from Furman, played a lot of minutes as the biggest guy out there. You could tell he knew what he was doing. He just had a lot of shots rim out. They were right there. I felt he wanted to do a lot of pick and popping and just couldn't quite knock down some shots. What did you think of his debut?
Yeah, he struggled offensively, but he still played hard, played really well on defense. So that was a key. And plus, when your guards are kind of shooting the ball really well and scoring, we didn't have to rely on him as much. He did make one at the end, and Coach Oates has talked about how his shot has improved in practice, and he's getting more confident in it. And because at Furman, man, all 5 of them guys could shoot it, and that's kind of what Noah Gurley was known for coming in.
It looked good to me. Like his stroke looked good.
Yeah. I think it's just first of the year jitters and stuff like that. I think as he calms down in his role, he'll be more effective and kind of stretch that floor for us like we want him to.
It seemed like some of the most effective lineups honestly didn't have either one of them out there. And Gary was like one of the biggest guys when he was coming out there. And when they brought in Miles as well, they were playing a lot of different lineups. Anything else on the front court either one of y'all want to talk about some of these bigger guys, even though they're not really big guys?
Funny story kind of about Miles. So Coach Hodgson, our assistant coach, so Miles played at IMG Academy. I think he was on like their B team. So Hodgson went down to watch a kid that was playing in that game, not Darius Miles. We didn't go to watch him. Just happened to be watching a game that Miles was playing in, and called Coach Oates and said, "Hey, this guy's good. We need to look at him, get interested in him, and offer him." And little did we know he'd be here, and he showed a lot of
He
potential
shot
last year.
100% last night, right? He's like
Yeah.
4 from the field, including
Oh,
3
yeah.
of 3 from the 3-point line.
Oh yeah, I mean, offensively he has so much potential. Last year he was really careless with the ball. That's why he didn't get as much playing time. Made a lot of turnovers when he got playing time, but you could see if he would get those together, you could see the potential that he has, and I think he'll get a lot of playing time this year too.
Anything
Real
else
quick.
front court? Yeah, Cody, what kind of jumped out to you? I mean,
Well-
is Alabama going to be able to play that small? I mean, we're talking contrast and comparing to Auburn. I mean, that's
Yeah.
going to be difficult to play against Jabari and Walker Kessler with those lineups out there.
Yeah, that was something that popped out. But real quick, I want to just plug, since I didn't get to it in an Auburn session. You know, somebody like Juwan Gary reminds me a lot of Chris Moore for Auburn. You know, just comes in off the bench, makes winning plays. You know, like you said, clean up the scraps and stuff like that. But to your point, yes, that's one thing. I think the guard rotation for Alabama is, might be going off one game, but it might be the best in the nation. It's going to be tough to match that. But where Auburn does, seems like they might have a matchup, advantage would be, if Kessler plays up to his potential and, Jabari Smith keeps progressing, and we have that kind of offensive ability from those two positions, where Alabama can strut out, some maybe undersized defensive, more lenient players, but I do like that matchup right now for Auburn.
Let me talk about a couple team things right there before we jump into the backcourt. I'll say the one team thing that jumped out to me the most, other than playing so small, was Alabama shared the basketball incredibly last night. It was whipping around at all times. There was nobody trying to get theirs at all. And so when you're coming off a championship season, winning the SEC, sometimes guys are like, well, now I can make my name. There's going to be people watching this team. I can go get paid and like Primo, get drafted like that. And I was impressed with that whole group, just to how well they were passing the ball. But that kind of feeds into my other thing is, is it just going to be that flow? There's not going to be a point guard, starting your offense. I mean, they were playing fast and it was working, but I wonder when it gets more into a half court oriented, some teams that can force them to play half court basketball, who kind of has the keys there? Because all the guys had them at different times. And I thought, and this was my only really negative of the whole guard group, is I thought when Quinterly wasn't the guy with the basketball, he wasn't in the mix as much. He kind of, Shackford's such a good shooter that he can stand in that corner if he wants to and be such a threat. I thought Quinterly at times kind of got lost a little bit when the other guys were running everything. Any thoughts there with y'all?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what they said Nate Oates has been preaching all summer was share the ball, and you kind of saw that set into them. And I think that's what's kind of cool, when you return your two top scorers, yet they're the ones driving and kicking to these other guys for them to get shots. That's pretty cool to watch. And to your point, I think that's kind of what Nate Oates preaches, though, is play as many guards as he can, and if you can run the offense, then you set it up and you run it, and let's just get something going. Because that's kind of the whole preaching point to Shackelford back in the summer when he wanted to transfer was stay here. We can put you in an on-ball role too, and still get what you want and get what we want. And so I really don't think he cares who starts it as long as they just move and get open shots.
I mean, I think it's a great strategy to go in with. I just don't know when it gets down to tough games, but you have to have some kind of hierarchy on who needs the ball and where they need it. I thought Shackford was great, but I thought he pretty much played the same role he did last year to me. I didn't see a lot of different stuff of him coming off ball screens and all that. They were trying some different stuff at the top of the key with Quinterly and Davison, where they're like going back and forth, and then a ball screen would pop there. Nothing was working super much. I didn't want to get too much into X's O's games one, but they were trying some things. You could tell that he kind of looked into what do you do with all these guards, you know what I mean? But I didn't see anything quite jump out yet.
I was kind of expecting Shackelford to be in a lot more pick and roll situations, maybe initiating the offense at the top of the key. Because in that kind of feedback he got going in the draft last year when he attempted, or there was name out there to get drafted. They were saying that he needed to improve more, because we all know he's an elite shot maker. He needed to improve more on the ball handling and playmaking side of offense.
Yeah, Drew, let me throw Ellis at you a little bit, since you hit on it early on. I thought he was super active out there. I thought he was the one that kind of his game stepped up a little bit more than Shackelford or Quinterly or any of the other guys. He seemed to have more of a presence than he did at any time last year. What'd you think of his night?
Yeah, it kind of sucks last year because he kind of fits that Herb Jones type of impact defensively and doing all the dirty stuff on that side of the ball. But his scoring level is a lot higher than Herb Jones. He can score from all three levels. So that, and coming in last year is he's a transfer from Florida Southwestern State down there, and that, which is a highly touted JUCO All-American kid, but it took him a little time to adjust. And having Petty and Herb and all them last year, his minutes were restricted. I think now you're kind of see him evolve into that role now that he has a bigger role out there. And he's taken it well. He had a really good exhibition game. Played really good against Louisiana Lafayette. So it's fun watching him.
I had his stat line at
18
18 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, a block. I mean, played great defense all night. I mean, if they could get 75% of that out of him every night, then he's like an all SEC type guy.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, I don't know if they're plus minus people, but he was plus 37.
I believe
in the minutes that he got last night. So it was,
he and Jawan Gary stuck out to me as guys that made winning plays out on the court.
Yep. And Nados does this thing where he did a hard hat award after each game.
He named that after Riley Norris.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's all the dirty stuff, diving on the floor, rebounds, charges. And Jawan Gary beat Keon Ellis by 1 point to get it last night. So
did he get a little banged up? Did you hear anything after the game right there? He was kind of limping out when he came out for the last time.
Man, that is the only bad thing. Gary, freshman year, he tore his ACL, missed that season. Last year, he had a shoulder injury and missed. He was off and on last year. He kind of got healthy at the end of the year, and you saw what you saw last night kind of start evolving. So, man, I hope he stays healthy this year because, as you can see, he makes a big impact. But he has had a record of getting bumped and bruised and all that.
Can we talk more JD Davison? Let's talk more. This dude was unbelievable. He was just so good. He was so fast, and he just looked a different level out there to me. Am I wrong? Am I overstating that?
No, I mean, I agree. It's hard for people to come in immediately and just fit in, as a freshman. But I think he did that. And I think, y'all kind of play fast too, but I think the style of offense helped that. It wasn't come down, set up, and run a set. It was let's get it out and let's go and kind of get a feel for it.
Yeah. So here's my overreaction for game one. If you throw out JD Davison out there and Shackelford and Quinterly's coming off your bench, you're not starting Quinterly. I mean, that's a lot of offensive firepower. JD in transition and Shackelford in transition, but shot making too. But I understand why they went with the rotation that they did. But if I'm one of those older guards, I'm looking behind my back saying this guy.
Yeah, there's going to be an odd man out eventually. They're going to have to play some bigger guys a little bit more.
Oh yeah. And the way Ellis is playing, you only have 2 positions to play all 3. So
what are the listed height of those 4 guys? If we're going Davison, Quinterly, Shackelford, and Ellis, kind of what are they listed at, Drew? Do you know?
So Shaq and JD are listed at like 6'3". Quinterly, I think, is 6'1", 6'2".
Is Ellis like big enough to how tall is Ellis?
Ellis is listed like 6'5", 6'6".
Okay, so he might guard some smaller bigs or bigger wings.
Yeah, he's longer and more wiry. He's a little bit bigger than they are.
JD 6'3", Keon 6'6", like you said. Quinterly is 6'1". I didn't think JD was taller than Quinterly. And then Shackelford is 6'3".
For somebody coming out of a little podunk 2A school, he sure is physically ready to play. Looks like he's been in the weight room and all that kind of stuff.
Man, I'll never forget when Riley said that Petway walked in the gym with him when he was a freshman in high school, and they were like, "Who is this kid?" Like, who? Like, and then he turned out to be who he is now. It was kind of cool.
So individually, I just kind of to throw some stats out there. Shackford had 17 points. He's 4 of 10 from the 3-point line. He was letting it fly, but I think coach is fine with that. 7 rebounds. I thought that was good. I think there's a lot of pressure on him. What was he going to look like? You know, the whole transfer portal thing and wanting to go to the NBA. It seems like he did not want to be there anymore. I think there was a lot of pressure on him, how he was going to play, and really his whole just demeanor out there. Do you think he seemed to be up on the bench doing a lot of coaching and stuff? It seemed like he was doing all the right things. Do you think everybody's kind of keeping an eye on that?
You talking about as far as teammates, or you like?
Yeah,
scouts?
and just like the fans too, and the coaching
vibe.
staff. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing Oates said about that whole situation was, even though he was in the portal, he was still staying in touch with his teammates, and like they had a really good relationship. And then when he came back to the team, he didn't immediately try to jump into that lead role of, being the big dog. He kind of worked his way back and, got everybody comfortable, and then kind of took that leadership role. And so I think they played it out well, and he worked himself back into it. And as you said, he was excited last night. You saw smiles on his face and all that. So it was good to see, because that can be a sticky situation, with when you got a guy saying, "Hey, I may want to go play with some other guys." How's your team react and all that? But I think they handled it pretty well.
Yeah. Hey, one more thing before we move on to a couple team things, and we'll get out of here. The one thing I was looking at for Auburn is how do they react without having Sharif Cooper on the floor, because it was such a big deal when he was on or off last year. And the answer seems to be Wendell Green is pretty much grabbing the ball and doing all he can to be Sharif. Question for Alabama: what do they look like without Herb Jones on the floor? What did you see there? Either leadership or just who wants the basketball at times. It wasn't a close game, so I don't think you'll see everything until it gets down to a really close game. But what'd y'all think of replacing a couple guys? And Petty, too, been out there forever. His role is a little easier to replace, I feel like. But what'd y'all think of who kind of picked up the slack not having Herb out there?
I think it was kind of a joint effort. That's kind of the advantage of having experienced guards with Quinterly and Shackelford, and Keon Ellis, who was a senior JUCO transfer. If we were relying on young guards, I think you'd see a bigger drop off. But I with having experienced guards handling the ball and running the offense, I didn't really see a big drop off. But like you said, as the competition gets better, we'll see more of who steps up in that role and all that.
I think defense and toughness stuff, it was Juwan Gary. I mean, he's kind of built like him anyway and can kind of do some of the same stuff. I feel like that's the guy who stuck out to me, that without him, you can have all the guard play in the world, but if you don't have somebody doing some of that little stuff like he does, you're not going to be a great team.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, my takeaway from last year was Herb was, really good playmaker, probably the second best passer on your team, probably behind Quinterly. And I like Alex said, Juwan Gary, he did I seen him make those type of plays that Herb would have made. And nothing really rings a bell with Keon Ellis, but I think he can also kind of fit that mold, defensive dynamo.
That's who's supposed to fit that role is Keon. He's supposed to be that.
It's game one,
guy.
But I didn't see it as much as, impact passing wise.
It's just so hard because of how Alabama played. They were so up tempo that I mean, it was just you don't have that. I mean, and they were passing the ball together so well that it was hard to pick roles. And like Drew's been saying all year, they're not really going to have them. And we'll see if that works in the long run. But it did last night, and it was kind of hard to say who replaced anybody because it was just a different deal. I felt like.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. When we get deeper in the season and things start slowing down, tournament play starts happening, you know who you guys are.
Yeah.
Who's going to be holding the ball, who's going to be making the right kind of play, like Herb did for him last year. It'd be interesting to see who it is.
Let's jump into some team stats before we get out of here for today. We got I had Alabama shoot 50% from the field overall. I mean, that's incredible. Got their threes up. I think they hit 13 of them, plus 14 in the rebounds. That was a key. But to me, the big stat was 19 assists. I thought that was the team stat that jumped out. 14 turnovers was a little high, I felt like, for that kind of game. But 19 assists was what jumped out to me. What other team stat type stuff jumped out to y'all?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. The 19 assists was my big standout stat that stuck out to me. Just what we touched on earlier, sharing the ball and all that. Another thing was 41 bench points.
Yeah.
That goes a long way when you get 41 points. There's a lot of teams that don't score a lot more than 41. If you ever watch a Texas A&M game, you're only going to score 60. So 41 coming from your bench is a lot, but it does speak to the type of offense in that as well. So
let me ask you that real quick, Drew, because I put down on my notes, I had Auburn kind of played a 9-man rotation. I said Alabama played 8.5. I think it was Ambrose Hilton played some good minutes off the bench. Do you think that's something that they're going to keep trying to work in, and it's more of a 9-man rotation with this team right now, or is it more of an 8-man rotation and, he might not be in the mix that much?
We'll find out shortly. So Alex Chiku, who was a kid that came in last year, he tore his Achilles. He's supposed to be back for game 3 or whenever he gets his conditioning right. He's a 16 kid that I don't know how good he is. I haven't seen him play. So him, and then when Rojas comes back, they'll all be fighting for that same spot, I feel like.
I thought Ambrose Hilton was pretty good. I thought he did a good job.
So he plays a good in that role. Like
for what Alabama needed. They just need somebody a little size out there that was active, that would guard and try to get some rebounds, and that's what he was doing.
Exactly. He can fill that role in short stints and stuff like that. And you won't see big minutes out of him. You'll see that role, go in, get rebounds, make hustle plays, put back, stuff like that. And what we'll see against bigger opponents, La Tech wasn't really that big, but we'll see how he develops and how
they were thick though, weren't they?
Good God. Yeah, the announcer spoke on Kenneth Lofton's girth last night. He said, I've never heard an announcer describe somebody by their girth, but they did that like 3 or 4 times last night.
I'd take him. I thought he was good. I liked him.
Oh man, I think he's really good. It's great. He's only 6'7", but he's also 275 pounds. So, but good skill.
Yeah.
Anything else jump out to you, Cody?
Well, kind of hit it already as bench points. That was going to be my points for Alabama and Auburn. The way Oates and Bruce Pearl likes to play, you're going to have a lot of people expending a lot of energy. So it's good to have 8+ in your rotation. And if you don't have much offensive drop off, that's just a huge plus,
So next up for Alabama, I've got them also Friday against South Dakota State. Drew, you know anything about South Dakota State?
Only that Lenardi had us playing them in the first round of the NCAA tournament in his projected bracket the other day. So,
okay.
Well, they still have that really tall dude that was like projected NBA player last year.
I honestly could not tell you one thing about South Dakota State.
Let me see if I can find this.
South Dakota State?
Jackrabbits, aren't they?
What conference are they in?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I was trying to look it up because, I had an Athlon that I bought, and they are predicted to be the best team in the Summit League.
Summit. Yeah, I didn't know which league they were in, but
they've got a all first team, 2 guys, 2 guard, a guard and a forward. So they've got a guy named Baylor Shearman and Douglas Wilson. They sound like some shooters. Highly fundamental guys. So they might, you get a little scared playing those teams that run some Princeton offense or something and shoot the basketball.
Oh, for sure. And Oates wasn't wild about starting out with La Tech, but we didn't have an opener. They didn't have an opener. It was getting late, so we kind of just happened. But it's good to play these kind of teams early on. They don't really weigh much on you, and
that's the difference in football and basketball. Football, you don't want to play one of those teams because you don't want to end up getting beat. But basketball, it's actually better, like for your RPI and stuff, if you play the better of those small schools. Like Morehead State should be pretty good too. Those won't be bad, on Alabama's net rating or whatever.
No, you play teams that has a chance to win their conference because them going to the tournament helps you, and it's good argument points at the end of the season if you're on the bubble and stuff like that.
All right, before we get out of here after the game ones, talking season openers, I've got to talk about the Alabama crowd a little bit. I bragged on them for having a good showing and showing up for kind of the honoring the student section leader that passed away. But You win by 29 points and you're playing La Tech. Do we really need rammer jammer and na goodbye and having to walk on shoot the ball with 10 seconds left? Drew, speak
Hey.
for this Alabama crowd. You gotta, hey, if you're gonna be a blue blood like you want to be, and you're getting the game on the SEC network instead of SEC Network Plus, which Riley thought was such a slap in the face to Auburn.
Yeah.
You gotta be a little, you can't rammer jammer La Tech losing by 30.
It's tradition though. It don't matter. It don't matter if we win by 1 or if we win by 50. You're getting rammer jammer.
You're gonna storm the court when you beat South Dakota State. I mean, come on.
Those Jackrabbits, you never know. But hey, just like the players out, it's early season. You gotta get that practice in for later in the season when you actually do need it. So it's all fun and games. I'm just happy to see 3,000 students in there, man. Like it. In the past few years, to have that many people at a first season opener game, it didn't happen in Alabama. So it's fun to watch. Auburn too. Just see these gyms packed out and all that.
Well, that's why we're doing this.
Year.
That's why we want to go in here and talk, because we just figured there'll be other people wanting to talk about these things too. And even at this point, national media still doesn't give the love. If you turn on Sports Center, you're not going to see the Auburn and Alabama highlights on basketball. They're going to do the Duke and Kentucky game and Kansas and Michigan State, no matter what. And I think we've both got teams that are right up there. So this should be the year we get some coverage.
Yeah. So I finally found it. 2018, 2019 South Dakota Jackrabbits. Mike Dam.
I remember that.
Senior, 6'9". He averaged 25.3 points.
I remember that name.
Forced to be, and 11.7 rebounds. Forced to be reckoned with in the March Madness.
Well,
so
what happened to that guy?
Got a couple more years of eligibility, and Alabama's got to play him next for this Friday.
Any other parting shots from you, Cody?
I was wondering where he went. He was out in the archives trying to find this dude.
Well, I was making sure I didn't make that up. No, I'm excited for this season. Like the way both teams play, up and down, pumped up. It's a good product for the state of Alabama, whatever school you root for, whether you root for the good guys and the Auburn Tigers, the bad guys in Alabama. At least we got two exciting teams to root for. And
UAB should be pretty good. Jack State should be good. Almost beat Wichita State on the road. South Alabama's going to be good. You got a couple Auburn transfers there. They've been pretty good the last couple of years. So now or never for state of Alabama. Why can't we be good at basketball too, right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, we'll wrap it up then. We just want to jump on here and talk a little season openers, and we'll try to get back at it next week. If not, something while those tournaments are going on, we got a little bit more to talk about. So until next time, I guess, this is Heating Up with Alex, Cody, and Drew talking Auburn, Alabama basketball.
I stay hot.